If you've been doing this for a hot minute, you know that what gets the sarcoplasmic juices flowing, those muscles growing, those striations showing is confusion. In fact, that's how Confucianism started. It was Confucius, a renowned mass monster and intellectual giant himself, who said, never do the same exercise twice. And he lived by that rule, doing every exercise only once, unless he had to do it twice, which he never did because he was a man of principle. It was only centuries later that scientists across the globe realized how profound his teachings were regarding building strong, flexible, enduring, and downright impressive legs. And today we're taking a page out of the Confucian doctrine. We'll go through the most goated leg exercises and squat variations, and by the end of this video you'll never train legs the same way again. So if you're ready, let's go and have some fun. Now, before we can advance, we need to advance first, which means that we need to build a foundation. And lucky for you, the foundation is the classic ass to grass deep squat. Feet flat on the floor, sitting down all the way as deeply as you can, working on our ankle, knee, and hip mobility, while building the necessary coordination for all types of bendy exercises for our legs. Not to mention all the health and quality of life benefits, from reduced back pain all the way to better digestion. And if you're struggling to squat down all the way with your feet flat, be it because your heels are raising or you're losing balance, you can make ass to grass squats super easy by starting in a position that elevates your heels, which will make anyone, regardless of their lack of mobility, able to squat down deeper than they would be if their feet were flat, until you develop the necessary mobility as well as strength, specifically in your core and hip flexors, to start reducing that elevation until your squat looks something like this. You have a lot of work to do. This brings us to our very first rule of Confucianism: do what you already do, but do it differently. For instance, staggering your squat will shift all kinds of focuses. We're now working on a more unilateral movement pattern, meaning one leg does more work than the other, confusing the body already. Just this tiny change already requires more flexibility on one side, more strength on the other side, giving us different ranges of motion, which is generally super important because we are humans. We usually don't work in symmetrical movement patterns at all in our day-to-day life. And what is training if not preparation for what we do in our day-to-day life? Having staggered your squat, you're gonna do something else very unconventional, which is adding weight, of course, to one side, now requiring even more balance, even more strength on one side, helping us get deeper into a position of stretching while using classic progressive overload methods. With the only thing to keep in mind with movements such as this is that you should definitely work both sides equally, or you're gonna end up Quasimodo style, and nobody wants that. So here are some cool staggering tips. To change things up, you can increase the elevation even more, stagger to the front, one foot behind the other, which is equally as cool as staggering to the back, adding more coordination through the doctrine of Confucian. This moves us to by far one of the most effective and most versatile leg exercises, especially once you start incorporating Confucian techniques. We've got a very classic lunging exercise, now a full unilateral pattern with all kinds of amazing benefits. For one, working on unilateral patterns, as we said, is the way to go when we're looking for functionality and adding more coordination benefits to our workouts. With the lunge having one additional benefit that pretty much everyone nowadays truly needs, which is a massive stretch for our hip flexors, especially once we have full range of motion, to lower our knee down all the way, push our hips forward, flexing our biceps and our glutes to lengthen our hip flexor, our quads and our lower abdominals even more. And with the lunge we can go absolutely bananas. We've got the classic forward lunge, we've got the classic backwards lunge, and without even having to change anything from our starting position, we can start adding massive amounts of both balance as well as hip mobility by crossing over backwards as much as we can, of course, into both directions. And the same thing goes for diagonal outward movements, now adding even more mobility for our hips. We've got forward elevation for an even longer range of motion, which means more strength requirements and more flexibility benefits. Doubly true for the elevated backwards lunge, once again crossing over for all the nice benefits we had before, plus longer range of motion, more stretch and more strength and even more coordination. Not to mention that of course we have walking lunges, not just forward but also backwards for even more balance, stabilization and coordination. And while we can do all of those with weights, here is how you maximize adding resistance to this exercise, and that is by using weights only on one side, requiring massive amounts of stabilization from our core and our leg musculature, making this exercise even more beneficial and also pulling us deeper into a stretch, as well as weights on both sides, however, different weights, giving us the same coordination benefits with even more strength addition to this exercise, so we can build massive legs, strong legs, enduring legs, coordinated legs, and all kinds of other fun stuff. This video is sponsored by the YouTube King, which is you. You are the one who makes or breaks this platform, and by liking this video, subscribing to this channel, and watching the whole video to the end, you use your authority as king to tell YouTube that what I'm doing is pretty okay and that you would like to see more of it. So accept my humble plea to click all the nice stuff that tells the algorithm that this is good. Maybe even leave a comment, tell me how you feel. Tell me how you're doing today. It's been a long time, or it's the first time, I don't know yet, but I am interested. Now, before we move on to what is probably one of the most sought after leg exercises, we have one that gets trashed for absolutely no reason, and that is the Bulgarian split squat. Now, you have no idea how many benefits you can reap from this exercise until you've tried the couple of variations we're gonna go through. Number one, this amazing, practically a couch stretch, if you will, going from our lower insertions in our quads surrounding our knees all the way through our hip flexors and our abdominals, opening up our entire anterior chain in the exact problem zone that most people suffer from sitting all day long, or even worse, sleeping on your side at night, which leads to all kind of fucked up, jacked up hips, which the split squat will take care of. Additionally, with this exercise being a very quad and glute dominant movement, we can start focusing on those muscles and of course making it more efficient by using weight on only one side, once again forcing our core and our obliques to work on our balance. The same goes for our foot musculature, specifically everything surrounding our ankles, and this type of resistance also changes by simply switching the weight to your other hand. Tiny change, a lot of amazing benefits. And once you have built the necessary flexibility to lower down all the way into the Bulgarian split squat, then you're practically already at the point where you can increase your range of motion even more by elevating your front foot and then changing it up, working with the weight on one side and then working with the weight on the other side. Adding those split squats will make a world's difference when it comes to your balance, coordination, leg strength, and opening up your hips so you can advance to even cooler leg exercises. Now, this here is the starting position for one of the most amazing leg exercises, which is the classic pistol squat. All the way up, extend your leg, all the way down, extend your leg again, which makes this a full repetition. And while most people think that the hardest part of a pistol squat is this, the extension and the reversal, that is absolutely not true. The hardest part is from an extended position, elevating your butt from the floor. Just this tiny movement is so much harder than the rest of this exercise, which is basically just quad engagement. Once you are here, all you need to do is flex, extend, reverse, and use a little bit of core strength. But how do we get to a full repetition, you might ask? Very good question. Very good question. You're doing well. You might not be surprised that elevation can make our pistol squats much easier, requiring less strength, less mobility, less coordination, less balance to be able to move through what is a shorter range of motion. And once again, we can work our way down and down and down until we have a longer range of motion and better capabilities. And as a supplementary exercise that is going to target exactly this spot, which requires the most strength to pull us off the floor, you should be able to do this extended elevated leg flex. And if you cannot hold this position for 30 seconds without cramping, then your hip flexors are way too weak and you need to work on them, not only because you want to do a pistol squat, but also to reduce risk of injury overall. You can start by adding dynamic raises. with a short range of motion and leaning back, leaning forward the stronger you become, elevating higher the stronger you become, and holding statically for longer periods of time the stronger you become. And of course, le résistance, making you even stronger and making this a very torturous exercise, but a valid one that is very important to master. If you thought I forgot about the #1 squat variation, then you obviously don't know me. The Cossack squat is by far my favorite squat exercise for a myriad of reasons. We're working on our ankle, knee, and hip mobility. We are opening up our adductors, stretching our hamstrings. We're building massive amounts of strength in our quads, and this exercise is highly variable. We have so many different variations, each with a different focus, and I've literally built complete routines only using the Cossack squat as a foundation, starting with the classic Cossack, both feet flat on the floor, lowering down all the way, keeping our feet flat on the floor, massive engagement of our quads and our hip flexors, as well as massive flexibility for our adductors, a variation that adds external hip rotation, switching the stretch from our adductors to our hamstrings just by pointing our toes upward, and requiring even more balance and strength in our foot musculature for raising our heel. We've got the pseudo hip thrust variation, adding a lot of posterior chain strength to the anterior chain strength we build with classic Cossack squats. And once again, adding a nice stretch throughout our entire anterior chain from our knees all the way to our abdominals. And we've got the maximum lower body mobility variation, which please don't try this at home if you are a beginner, which in this case is basically sitting down all the way butt to the floor, and more importantly, reversing out of this position all by yourself without the assistance of your hands. If you think you have proper ankle, knee, and hip mobility, try it out and tell me about it. And of course, all of those exercises can be done with added resistance, switching variations within the same exact set for even more confusion and your body asking itself, what the fuck is going on out there? It's worth it, trust me, it is so worth it to switch things up as often as you can. Now we've got one honorable mention before we move on to the second most important cluster of exercises in this video. You might have already seen the classic shrimp squat, requiring a lot of strength, coordination, flexibility, and balance, basically giving us everything we want from a classic squatting exercise. And very importantly, working on another immense problem zone, which is ankle mobility, something most people do not work on directly, and it comes back to bite them in the ass later on, especially the older you get. So chop chop before you regret it. Moving us to some primal or animal movement pattern variations. Now combining everything we did before, we've got strength, endurance, coordination, variation, balance, flexibility, and the most important thing of all, fun. Classic low hip frontal ape, working a lot on our hip flexors and our quads and foot musculature and shoulders. Elevated hips, gorilla walk for even more shoulder dominance and a lot more hip flexor and quad dominance as well. Short lateral monkey, adding some explosivity to our upper body while opening up our hips and working a lot on our ankle, knee, and hip mobility. Long lateral monkey, basically adding a lot of adductor stretching to all the benefits we had with the shorter variation. Giraffe walks, adding massive amounts of posterior chain flexibility for our entire body. The ostrich, basically the same exact benefits as the giraffe with one more, which is making us look like absolute idiots. The lizard, adding massive amounts of strength, flexibility, coordination, endurance, and making you an absolute full body beast, not just your legs. And if you're looking for a true primal workout, this video has dozens of variations we go through step by step. You can check them out, see how much fun you can have with those. And for the last exercise in today's repertoire, I'll give it over to Past Me, who has a lot to say about this. The box jump is all about building explosive strength and speed for our leg musculature, jumping from the spot with both feet simultaneously and maximizing the amount of strength we can generate throughout the single movement, helping us build not only a lot of strength, but also pack on some size when it comes to our leg musculature, and masterful control throughout speedy movements. Not to mention that working on box jumps is an insane amount of fun and an amazing experience of success due to how easily you can scale it to make it more and more demanding, simply by increasing the elevation you want to jump on, until you are close to barely being able to get fully up there. This of course also includes the single leg box jump for the same kind of unilateral strength and control we mentioned with the pistol squat. As for programming, if you're expecting sets and reps and putting together a workout, then you haven't understood the Confucian doctrine. If I tell you what to do, how are you going to be confused? Get a grip on yourself. All you need to do is take some of the variations you think are cool, try them out, put them together, take them apart, deconstruct them, play around with them, be a little creative, have some fun, because that is how you're gonna build a consistent routine. And I'm talking about a consistently changing routine. With that said, I'll probably see you very soon, so until then, have a good one. Captain Cairo, peace out.